Hello everyone, good morning, good evening. Welcome to another PMP Q&A session. Today we will be discussing 10 more questions and these questions are from the latest exam content outline. So let's start question number 1. All right, Robin, you have chosen option A. You're on mute.
My apologies. It isn't an issue yet, but it is a risk because it wasn't considered with the estimate, and there could be increased costs. So that is a risk. So it would assumptions and changes wouldn't apply. Changes wouldn't apply at this stage. And it's not an issue yet. So that's why I chose risk register.
All right, thank you. Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
While developing the cost estimation, they did not consider the annual inflation, which in future can be a risk, but this is an issue we need to update the issue log so that it will not turn into a big risk, so that this issue can be handled at the time when they realize they have not considered the annual inflation. So that's the scenario I thought and picked option B.
All right. Nikki, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, I was thinking that that it would be a risk because it would be something that they didn't consider. I think that has nothing to do with assumptions or changes because it hasn't happened yet, and that it's not an issue yet, like Robin said. So I think that it would be on the risk register.
All right. Francis, you have chosen option C.
Yes, I've chosen option C because I think it's an assumption we're not aware of the interest rate. You know, how much it's gonna be, but here we know there's gonna be an interest rate anyway. So that's why I say it's an assumption. So during the planning phase, I think we have to include all these assumptions. So that's why I say we have to update the assumption log instead.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. So let's read it. It says a project team member failed to take into consideration the annual inflation rate while developing the cost estimation for a long-term infrastructure project. This oversight could impact the project budget and financial planning. What document needs to be updated first to reflect this oversight?
An assumption.
So first of all, we are not sure where we are right now in terms of the timeline of the project, right? We are not sure even if, for example, we are still in the planning stage. We are not sure we are in the execution stage. So from timeline perspective, this question does not give a clear idea where we are in terms of the timeline. But regardless of of that, things that we assume during the planning, those are called project assumptions. So for example, what is an assumption? Assumption are the basis on which you plan something, right? So for example, inflation, whether it is 10% or 15%, let's suppose I assume inflation would be 10%. So this is an assumption, right? Even if I do not include this in my plan, still it is an assumption, right? So during the planning stage, team members fail to take into consideration the annual inflation rate, which while developing the cost estimation, and it says this oversight could impact the project budget, right? So it's neither a risk. Risk is something that is uncertain future event. So there is no uncertainty here, right? We have already skipped it. You understand, everybody? Since it has already been, ignored or not taken into consideration, so it can't be a risk, number one. So A can't be the right answer. B, issue log. So we update issue whenever we have an issue during the execution stage of the project. So this could have been an issue if we are in the execution stage of the project. Then we update the issue log and then we see, okay, how we are going to deal with this issue right now. But in the statement, as I mentioned, there is no indication where we are in terms of our timeline. So we are not certain whether it is an issue. If we are still in the planning stage, then it's not an issue. I hope you understand that, right? Change log is documented to reflect the change once we are in the execution stage. If we are still in the planning stage, the plans are not approved, then there is no need to go with the change log, right? So correct answer is assumption log, since it was an assumption which was not taken into consideration. So now you need to update the assumption log, and based on that, you would be raising a change request if the plan is approved. Otherwise, you will be simply updating the other documents, estimates, or relevant documents. So correct answer is assumption log, because we have missed all the assumptions. What is an assumption log? Assumption log, it's a document that contains list of assumptions, right? So similarly, issue log or risk log contains details of risk. Issues log contains detail of issues, and assumption log contains all the assumptions. So correct answer is option C. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. Is it part of the PMP? Absolutely. That's why we are studying it. It's super important. Assumption log is really, really important. We develop this as soon as possible, right? If you read the process group guide, probably in the initiation stage, when we develop charter, we develop assumption log. All right, next question. All right, Carlos, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, I was between A and B, but maybe it seemed logical to establish communication with the stakeholders to align and not have deviations.
All right, so you're saying the problem is stakeholders alignment, okay?
Yeah.
Vivek, you have chosen option C.
Yes. Since I was like between C and D, uh, but I've not chosen option D because the scope validation regularly to ensure the deliverables. We are actually doing that here. So in the scope validation or the review meetings only, stakeholder is expressing their disagreement. So to avoid this, the collective scope definition should have been like developed at the start. So the scope was clear and agreed with all the stakeholders.
All right, thank you. Robin, you have chosen option A.
It would appear that the issue here is that there's insufficient detail in the work breakdown structure. So if that was better defined, it would help to satisfy this problem. So that's why I chose option A.
All right, thank you. Basma, you have chosen option B.
I changed it. I apologize, but I changed it to C.
Okay,
Is it okay? Can I explain why?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first I thought it was a communication issue, but then I looked at the question again, and it said that they knew what the scope was, but the details were vague. So it was mostly put wrong in the collective, you know, in the definition, and you know, and what are expected from the team, what's expected from the team. That's why you have to change and explain it to them to enhance their involvement and collaboration. That's what I thought.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's read the question. It says the PM is leading a shopping mall construction project. During the initial phases, the team and stakeholders agreed on project scope. So first thing, they agreed on something, right? So it means involvement is there. You understand, everybody? If you're agreeing with the stakeholders during the initial stages, it means there is some level of involvement, right? And we can also see there is some level of collective scope definition. If both are agreeing on something, it means stakeholders are involved. However, the scope was vague and lacked specific details. So scope was vague and lacked specific details. Now, identifying the right problem in the question is the key. Now, in this question, you could be confused, like there could be multiple problems. So for example, there's one word like disagreement. This could be a problem. Stakeholder expressed dissatisfaction. This could be a problem, right? Or scope is vague. This is another problem, right? Now, there are three things which are mentioned here. Now, identifying the right root cause is the key, right? So what's happening here? We need to find what's the root cause. And what's the root cause here? As Robin mentioned, insufficient detail. So whatever is happening, that is because of insufficient detail. It's not because you haven't discussed with the stakeholders. It's not like you have done it unilaterally. It's not like you have not communicated. Whatever you have agreed on, it lacks sufficient detail. So lack of detail is the problem here. Now we'll see which option addresses this problem of insufficient detail. Now, option A, develop a detailed work breakdown structure to define the project deliverables and work package clearly, could be a right option. Establish robust communication with the stakeholder to ensure continuous alignment and understanding. So we are not talking about alignment here, as I have discussed. This is because of alignment is the effect of the root cause. You understand? Not having the detailed scope leads to misalignment. So we always address the root cause. So B can't be the right answer. Implemented collective scope definition, they are already involved. So there is no indication in the question that says you have not involved stakeholders. So correct answer is option A, develop a detailed work breakdown structure to define the project deliverable and work package. This will address the problem of insufficient detail. And when you have detailed scope, then there won't be disagreement, there won't be any kind of dissatisfaction. So correct answer is option A. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right. Monica, you have chosen option B.
Yep. So I chose option B because it says that budget constraints will prevent them from completing the entire project as planned. So you don't want to just spend additional money because they're already over budget. So they're looking for a way to deliver the project to stay within budget. So I eliminated A. I thought you don't want to do C because it's too extreme. So you're not going to implement rigorous cost control measures. And then I don't know that you want to de-scope anything. So my thought was that you should deliver incrementally. And then option B refers to rolling wave planning.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. Rudy, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, and what I was concentrating on is it says the stakeholders asked the project manager to propose a solution to stay within budget while delivering a functional hospital. So to me, D, it could have a functioning hospital, but not, or some of the non-essential features might not be there, but it'll still be a functional hospital. So that's why I chose D.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. Francis, you have chosen option B.
I was stuck between B and D, but I ended up actually choosing B because I think depending on the nature of the hospital, whether we can do like a project in multiple release depending on the nature of the hospital. I think it might depend, so to say, if it's a private hospital, we can use the revenue from the hospital to normally this happen like in constructions whereby revenue can be part of a budget for the next phases. That's why I wasn't sure, but I think I'll go into it still.
All right, I like the idea. You're saying you will be constructing a part of a hospital and then getting revenue and then building the rest of that, right? Okay, let's read the question. It says a PM is overseeing the development of a new hospital. Midway through the project, the client determines that budget constraints will prevent them from completing the entire project as planned. So some words are really important. So for example, here the word determines is used means they are certain about it. It's the most likely situation. So it's not something they suspect or they are not sure about it or they are thinking, they are considering, right? So they have determined that budget constraints will prevent them from completing the entire project as planned. Means they won't be able to complete the entire project within the planned budget. And the team has already faced delays and increased cost. So cost was also an issue, already an issue. And on top of that, client determines they don't have enough budget for that. So the stakeholders asked the PM to propose a solution to stay within budget while delivering a functional hospital, a working hospital. What's the best course of action? Evaluate additional budget? No. They're asking us to stay within budget. So there is no point of going for additional budget, right? So we can simply eliminate this. Consider rolling wave planning to deliver the project in multiple releases. Now, what is rolling wave planning? Rolling wave planning, it's a type of planning where you divide your project in chunks and you focus on near-term work. So when you lack sufficient detail about project specifications, so what you do, you focus on near-term work and you progressively elaborate your plan. In this question, there is no indication like you lack information about product specification or requirements would change, or you have more detail about near-term work and you don't have information about the later stages of the project. So there is no indication of lack of understanding of scope. So there is no point of going with rolling wave planning. You understand, everybody? So rolling wave planning can't be the right answer here. Implement rigorous cost control measures to stay within the allocated budget. It's just a theory, like what do we mean by rigorous cost control measures, right? To stay within the allocated budget, how we can implement rigorous cost control measures if we are already having cost related issues and stakeholders are saying we can't complete the project within the allocated period. So correct answer, and the only option is option D. We will be proposing de-scoping by eliminating some non-essential features, because this is the requirement of the stakeholders. They want a functional hospital. They don't want to complete 100% of the scope. They just, as Rudy mentioned, they want something that is functional, so you can eliminate non-essential features. So correct answer is option D. All other options are incorrect. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Carlos, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, this is the first time I see this question, but it seems to be like the Pareto analysis, where the severity level is the one you want to attack first in terms of risk. Lower risks, maybe they can stay later to be addressed.
All right, thank you. Mohan, you have chosen option A.
I'm not sure on this one. I feel like if I'm allowed to change, I'm gonna go with D. I mean it adds more an alignment with RBS or the benefits. It basically provides a framework to decode the complexity associated with risk, although I'm not 100% because I thought risk like WBS is basically subdividing a high level risk into further decomposition of the risk, right? So yeah, honestly, I'm not 100%.
So you chose option A, then you thought it would be D, and at the end you think it's C, right?
No, I'm still sticking with D.
Okay, all right. Thank you for detailed explanation. Monica, you have chosen option C.
Yeah, so I chose options C because I was just thinking about work breakdown structure, and all of the breakdown structure are responsible for breaking things down into smaller, more manageable pieces. So that's why I went with C.
All right, thank you. But Monica, what's wrong with option A or option B? Isn't it breaking down into smaller pieces?
It organizes project risks into categories. It categorizes individual risk into different categories. I think they just sound too similar.
Okay. All right. So yes, A, B, C in terms of breaking down, if I use the logic that you have used, so A, B, C are almost similar, right? Or even D it talks about, it decodes the complexity associated with risk. But A, B, C directly they are linked with categorizing or breaking them down or decomposing risk into smaller and more manageable risk. Okay, we'll come to that. We'll find what's the right answer. Thank you for detailed explanation.
Okay.
Okay, Francis, you have chosen option B.
I chose option B again, as you said. I took some time for this one because they all look the same. Really, it's about like decomposing this one. But I remember thinking, when it comes to this risk breakdown structure, we divide the risk based on the impact and the severity or likelihood of them happening. So that's why I chose B. We want to put like the ones that have more risk in a certain category, and then the ones that have less impact in another category, I think.
All right, thank you. So Has, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like, organizing some into make it easy and identifiable, uh, like any breakdown structure, right? Uh, but the other levels of severity level and all, they have impact and the other metrics which can help us, right? Manage a smaller part. I'm not sure how we can do that, as well as complexity may not be also addressing it. So I thought, A is a better option because identifying, analyzing, and managing them becomes easy.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. So risk breakdown structure, RBS, it's the framework that we use to categorize risk in different categories, right? That is the definition of RBS, which is in option A. So correct answer is option A. Option B, it categorizes individual project risks in different categories based on severity level. No, we develop RBS before we identify risks. We develop RBS before we identify risks. So it just provides list of categories so that when you identify risk, you can categorize them, right? So RBS, it organizes project risk into different categories. So for example, we use PESTEL, right? So PESTEL, P stands for political risk, E, economic, social, technical, environmental, legal, right? Or we use Spectrum, we use TCOP, WUCA. So all of these mnemonics are used they represent different categories. So when we identify risk, we place them in these categories. Option B, it categorizes individual project risk in different categories based on severity level. No. So this portion of this option is incorrect, not based on severity level. Option C, it breaks down the overall risk factor of the project. No, it does not break down the overall risk factor. It breaks down risk into different categories. Option D, it provides a framework to decode the complexity associated with the risk. No, it doesn't provide any framework. It just provides different categories that you use to place different risk item in different sections. So correct answer is option A. All other options are incorrect. Let's read the explanation. So if you see, by organizing risks into categories, an RBS helps PM systematically identify and analyze risk. So before you identify and analyze risk, you define these different buckets. So RBS provides you those different buckets or categories of risk. So if I identify risk, I'll put it in a bucket A, bucket B, C, and so on. All right, next question. All right, Francis, you have chosen option A.
Yes, yes, I've chosen option A because I went through by elimination and I don't I came up with it because it's a framework by which team used to select or prioritize the item or features from the product backlog. So I think that made more sense to me.
All right, so you're saying we need to do prioritization of the features. So the correct answer is option A.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Robin, you have chosen option D.
I think that the real issue here is in the second sentence. We have different opinions on which features are the most important. So, so we could put it to the vote and find out in that method. So that's why I chose D.
All right. Thank you for the explanation. So your keyword is different opinions. All right. Okay, Anton, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, I have also chosen option D because we don't really know in this case how they want to prioritize based on customer satisfaction using Cannon model, or they have some other factors in mind. So that's why all key people who are making decisions should basically agree on what method they would be using and then use this method to vote.
All right, since there is no indication which model we should use, so we should agree on the prioritization process. All right, thank you. Nikki, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, I didn't think A because it says based on customer satisfaction, and I don't, they have different opinions on that, so I wasn't sure if that matched the keywords from the question. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like just have a meeting and vote on it was a solid way to choose the features. And I can't remember what the Delphi technique is. So I went with the comparison to prioritize the features, thinking that that was what they had asked for was, I guess if my thought in the way that would work possibly is put them in pairs and then where you eliminate some until you get down to the features that you want to keep. So I'm not really sure, but that's where I went with that.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
A very similar explanation to Nikki. I simply did not think that voting method would have been a very practical solution. Well, yes, practical, but it's not, to me, is a sensible one. If there's different opinions and the question is about systematically prioritizing the features, paired comparison would have bring up a list of prioritized features that would have solved this scenario. So that's why I picked option B.
Why not Kano model, Manmeet?
It's for the customer satisfaction. That's the only thing that put me off. So having a comparison eliminates the other feature. When we have a comparison, it means we know, we've been testing it, we've been thinking which one has a preferred weight, and that's how we pick in a paired comparison form. We test it against, we compare against each other. So that's how I thought comparison would work better.
Okay, so Manmeet, if I change the word customer to stakeholders, then what are your thoughts? So I have changed it. Use the Kano model to categorize features based on stakeholders' satisfaction.
Then it's all about stakeholder satisfaction. If the question says stakeholder have different opinions on features are most making it difficult to reach consensus.
Okay, so it means the word customer is not the problem here, right? The problem is different opinions. Okay, this is what you're saying.
Yes, there is a problem of different opinions, but there's also a trouble of prioritizing the features. So the question is asking which technique should PM has used to systematically prioritize the feature. This would have made it smooth between stakeholder and PM, that okay, this is the prioritization comparison I did, and seems like this is the more potential features. Maybe this is how I thought and
All
picked
right.
B.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. So I think most of you could not figure out the right answer just because you have read the first 4 lines. I guess this is my assumption, right? If you read the last line, it says, prioritize the feature by comparing them against each other. So we need to find a method where we prioritize feature, where we compare features against each other. Now let's read the option. Option A, use the Kano model to categorize feature. In Kano model, we do not compare features against each other, right? So there is no one-to-one comparison. Option D, conduct a paired comparison to analyze the features systematically. So this is the right answer. Paired comparison is a technique where you compare A with B, B with C, C with D, right? Remember, if you recall, let me just quickly go through it. So we talked about paired comparison. So paired comparison is something like that. So you have feature A, you have feature B, and feature C, right? So you have A here, you have B, and you have C. If I can't compare A with A, B with B, C with C, right? So if I compare A with B, and suppose feature A is more important than feature B, right? So I will be allocating number 1 to A. If A is more important than C, 1 score would be here, right? So now I'll talk to B. Now in B, if I compare B with A, we have already discussed B is less important and A is more important, so I will be writing 0 here. Now B with C, let's suppose B is more important than C, so it would be here. And here we will be having C with A would be 0, C with B would be 0. So I have my priority 2, 1, 0. So highest the number, higher the priority. So I can use this paired comparison where we compare features with each other, right? And this is what is required in this statement. You need to systematically prioritize the features by comparing them against each other. There is only one technique that helps you categorize feature in different categories by doing a paired comparison. All other techniques are irrelevant. Okay, so correct answer is option B. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Vivek, you have chosen option C.
So I again started eliminating the options. So with option A, there is no point of identifying the stakeholders. We know the stakeholders and we know the customers also. So we just want to like take their opinions while making the development. The requirement verification option also like cannot be done when scope is finalized. So that I'm not sure like why how that can be possible with the end users or customers. So co-creation is something that we collaborate with stakeholders and customers during the development phase and seek their feedback and their ideas continuously throughout the development process. That will help us to meet the customer needs. That's why I selected option C.
All right, thank you. Kokila, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, so I was going through the elimination technique. So for me, do regular requirement verification to make sure they are in line with the customer needs will be taken care in the A option because they are also choosing, deciding to take it early in the stages and also to seek continuously. So it is anyway taken care. Use co-creation to collaborate with customers and stakeholders during development. Is also, I felt the same thing is taken care. Arrange co-location to have team members. The customers is not here, so I eliminated that because it clearly says in the question that the customer needs, the product meets the customer expectation. So that's why I chose option A.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. Vivek, you want to say something?
Yes, I just missed to like add one thing. So even the question mentions involvement of customer and stakeholders. So only C option has both customers and stakeholders mentioned. Other all options are either involving customer or stakeholder, not both. So that's why
All right.
I think it is the correct answer.
All right, thank you. Rudy, you have chosen option C.
Yes. So while I was reading the question, so it says to ensure the product meets customer needs and expectations, the project manager decides to involve both customers and stakeholders directly in the design. So, so it's not just only the customers that were trying to get involved in this, but also the stakeholders. So I saw C included both customers and stakeholders. That's the reason why I chose C.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. So your answer is correct, those who have chosen option C, but the reason is different, right? So maybe the question is structured in a way it's a little easier for you to figure out the right answer just because of customer and stakeholders. But apart from that, if we read the question, it says the product manager decides to involve customer, right? Product manager decides to involve customer and stakeholder directly in the design and development process. So keywords are direct involvement. So we are directly involving customers and stakeholders in the development process. What is the best way to do that? So co-creation is a technique. It's a concept in which we make customers or stakeholders part of our team. You understand, everybody? Co-creation, it's a technique where we involve customer by making them part of the team. So they would be performing some roles. So for example, in one of the project, we made customers representative as part of our steering committee member. So they were a member of the steering committee. They were involved in project monitoring and oversight. So they were able to provide us the right information at the right time, and they were getting information as well, whatever they need. So that was a win-win situation. So the only option that that directly addresses the concern, which is direct involvement of stakeholder, is co-creation. So use co-creation to collaborate with customer and stakeholders. Okay. So correct answer is option C. And one comment to respond to the logic that since option C has both customers and stakeholders, that's why you have chosen option C. Even if customer is not written, stakeholders include customers. You understand, everybody? So even the word stakeholders is written, it is understood, it contains all relevant stakeholders. So correct answer is option C, but the logic is, or the key word is co-creation. Co-creation is the only method where you directly involve stakeholders in the development process. All other options are incorrect. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Carlos, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, I think we discussed this in the past, and even though I saw some other techniques in some government institutions, I agree that having one-on-one meetings with employees would gather their feedback. But I hope I'm right.
All right, thank you. Vivek, you have chosen option D.
Yes, as per the PMI's principle that like having a direct communication with the like how will it actually help to resolve the issues. So that was the one reason choosing option D, but the other options will not give the correct results, like or like take consider amount of time also, town hall or like anonymous health surveys. So that could have been not able to gather the correct data. So that's why inclined more suffer to option D.
All right. Thank you for the explanation. Basma, you have chosen option A.
Yes, the one-on-one meeting will take a lot of time,
Okay.
and the whole meeting, the town hall meeting might be, it might not have a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
B, anonymous organizational health survey. It's between A and B, but I chose A. It's because one, it's anonymous. Two, you can't. I honestly can't tell exactly why, but I thought that the A is more safe, and you can have reports out of it.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. Okay. Jashri, you have chosen option B.
Yes, Amar, I chose option B because previously we had a similar question in the previous sessions, is what I remember, wherein if we have some employee concerns to be addressed, we need to go with anonymous organizational health surveys. That's how I inferred this answer.
All right. Thank you, Jashri. Rudy, you have chosen option B.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree with one-on-one. That just would be too time consuming, especially if it's a huge company. I mean, how do you know who to choose? Regular town hall meetings might not be safe because people, some people maybe don't feel comfortable. They're not extroverted just to say how they feel, they'll keep it to themselves. B, I chose B because in organizations that I worked with in the past, we have used surveys, anonymous surveys, to kind of get a general idea of, how people feel about the building or the elevators or whatever it is. So that's why I chose B.
All right. Thank you, Rudy. Basma, you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to add that if you do the survey, it's a one time, but when you have a box, you can have several, like the same person may be coming back, and that would be helpful for the retaining of the employees. That's my thought.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation, everybody. So one of you has mentioned like option D is correct because one of the PMIisms is have direct face-to-face communication, right? That is correct. But dynamics are different when you're talking about your own team member and when you're talking about the entire organization. When you have a team member who is working with you, so there is a close connection and you understand each other's personalities and there is a level of trust. So you can have that face-to-face or one-on-one conversation. When it comes to all employees and you're talking about what are your concerns, employees do not feel safe. So I like Basma's point, like it's not a safe environment. So scheduling one-on-one meeting with employees, once it is time consuming, one, it is time consuming. Second, it's not safe, psychologically safe for the employees to share their concern with the manager or HR manager, whoever is interviewing them. So D can't be the right answer. And on similar grounds, C can't be the right answer because it's not psychologically safe, right? Now, option A and B have a dedicated complaint box where anonymous reports can be received. Okay. And option B, conduct an anonymous organizational health survey. The problem with option A is that you're not providing any sort of framework to employees where they can give you input on specific areas, right? So what we do is we use a technique which is a combination of active and passive involvement. So you are pushing your agenda, you're motivating people to give you some details, but that's anonymous. Means, for example, you need information about A, B, C, D, the people will be providing you all the details. If you're just having a complaint box, it's a passive technique and you won't be getting the desired data. So to get desired data, you will be running an organizational health survey where people would be comfortable sharing their thoughts, their concerns, and you will be getting the required data for analysis purposes. So the efficient way to collect that information is conduct an anonymous organizational health survey. So correct answer is option B. Let's read the explanation. I'm happy some of you are commenting in the chat window, like what are your errors or why you are choosing the wrong option. So that is really helpful if you understand why you have chosen the wrong option. All right, next question. Okay, let's read the explanation, then we'll go to next question. So same level of candidness and comprehensive insight. So because of two reasons, health survey, anonymous health survey is the best choice. Next question. All right. Ukila, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, so it is clearly saying that the project is behind schedule and there are a lot of increased concern. So the project manager, as a project manager, I eliminated the C and D because terminate the contract with the current contractor and seek more reliable contractor. Immediately we shouldn't be going to that option. And C is consider imposing penalties to recover damages. It's also not a very very nice option to do immediately. So there are only three, A and B left. For A, convenient. B is discuss alternatives with the sponsor on how to work with the contractor. It's not going to help because it's just between sponsor and the project manager. We need more inputs from the team in different angles to analyze and fix the situations. That's why I choose A.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. Okay. Nikki, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, I thought very similar to Kokila that the two harsh choices were probably not good to go with. And I think from what the question says, where it says that despite all possible efforts to encourage the contractor, the performance does not improve. So they have already encouraged and tried to work with the contractor. And that's what B is basically saying, is how to go and work with the contractor. And that hasn't worked. They're still behind. They're still over budget. So that a team meeting to try and come up with a solution, I think, is the best option.
All right. Thank you for shortlisting the options. Okay, Mohan, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, I chose the most dire option. I mean, obviously there are steps that we need to do before you terminate the contract. But basically, given the situation that this is, they work with the contractor and it's not working out. They've tried all the options to not improve the situation. So, and given the issue that the project is significantly behind schedule and over budget, A, B, and C really don't solve the problem because it's an issue that's has already been tried and not fixed. So I guess even B, discuss alternatives with the sponsor. I mean, really, the sponsor, what is he going to do? There are no alternatives. I would assume, to work with the contractor. So really, I thought D was the best option.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. So let's read the question. It says a PM is overseeing a bridge construction project. Halfway through the project, it becomes evident. So this is the key word. It becomes evident that the contractor is unable to meet the agreed upon milestones due to a persistent quality issues and repeated delays. So it's clear, like this contractor won't be able to meet the deadlines or achieve the milestones. And next, despite all possible efforts to encourage the contractor, the performance does not improve and the project is significantly behind schedule and over budget. So first, it is clear they're not able to complete the project on time or within budget. Second, you have done whatever is possible to encourage the contractor, but it hasn't worked. And then the stakeholders are increasingly concerned about the project's viability. So they are also concerned about project. What should the PM do? In this situation, you have done every possible thing, right? So if you have done every possible thing, there is no point of convening a team meeting or discussing alternative with the sponsor or imposing penalties, because this contractor won't be helpful in this situation. Correct answer is option D, terminate the contractor with the current contractor and seek a more reliable contractor. So Kokila mentioned, she used a word, we should not do this immediately. So we are not doing this immediately, right? We have tried all other options, right? We have done, we have encouraged the contractor.
I
we
missed.
have determined. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I missed that word, Mamar. So yeah.
It's okay.
I think it's very important to pay attention to every word.
Yeah, this is important. So as Mohan mentioned, this is a situation where you have done every possible thing. So the right option is, when nothing is working, termination is the last resort. So we do terminate, right? It's not like that we don't terminate the contract. We do that, right? If nothing is working, if we have tried all the possible things, then of course termination is the right choice. So correct answer is option D. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right. Vivek, you have chosen option C.
Honestly, I'm not aware about any of the terms actually. Or not recall if we discussed in past. So with the situation mentioned, the critical path method will help, because since one of the uh, middle chain is like kind of broken, so by wide guess, not sure.
All right. Thank you. Robin, you have chosen option C.
Yes, quite honestly, I didn't know enough about the other options. But it just appeared that, there's multiple stages and we've got a critical path set, but there's a weak link there. So he's focusing on that, the weakest link in the critical path. So that's
All
why I
right.
chose C.
All right. Thank you. Manmeet, you have chosen option C.
Critical path method, to my understanding, as I have read, I'm not sure, but this is what I remember. Um, it is a technique which has a sequence of activities that must be finished must be finished to complete the entire project, and it should be on time. So that's why it occurred to me that there's a weakest link, and PM has identified it, and he wants to focus on limiting the factor to improve the process gradually. So he's sticking to the critical path method. So this is the concept that occurred.
All right. Thank you. Rudy, you have chosen option A.
Yes. Yeah. So they've identified the weakest link in the chain, and they decide to focus on this limiting factor to improve the process gradually. I think that A, to me, as far as I understand, the theory of constraints would kind of fit in that, but it also could be C, so I'm not exactly sure.
All right. Thank you for explanation. Francis, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, as he just said, I chose option B because the question says we have identified the weak link. So therefore, this weak link, I think, is creating a bottleneck. So with the TOC, we use this method actually to eliminate like the impact of the bottleneck. So I think that's why this theory comes into context.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So let's read the question. It says, a PM is overseeing a production process for manufacturing car engines. The process involves multiple stages, but it has been observed that the assembly stage is significantly slower than other stages, causing delays in the overall production. You have identified the weakest link in the chain and decided to focus on this limiting factor. So, critical path method CPM, it gives you detail about what are critical activities, a list of critical activities, right? So it doesn't give you detail about what's the weakest link in the chain. You understand, everybody? It gives you 10 critical activities, 15 critical activities. So it differentiates between critical and non-critical activities. Now, which one is the weakest among critical activities? We don't have any idea about that, because all are criticals. So how you would be choosing which one is the weakest link? So CPM would not give you any idea about the most limiting factor, because it gives you multiple limiting factors. You understand, everybody? So in a process, if we have 20 critical activities, now which one is the weakest link? All 20s or what? So CPM can't be the right answer. Program evaluation and review technique, PERT. PERT is, we talked about beta estimate, if you recall. The other name of beta estimate is PERT, right? We discussed that. So it has nothing to do with the statement. Critical chain project management or critical chain method. This is similar to CPM, but in this method, we use buffers, right? So I have explained this in one of the Q&A session, like critical chain method is, so for example, let me quickly explain it. So for example, let's suppose you have an activity A, you have an activity B, you have an activity C, and this is your deadline, right? Right? So what you would be doing during the planning stage, you will be giving less time to team member for A, less time for B, and less time for C, and you will be having this time as buffer to respond to any uncertainty. Now, this process of adding buffers in your schedule, this is called critical chain method. So you compress the schedule and you keep extra time as buffer. So in case your team members are not able to complete A, B, C within this allocated time, you have some buffer to respond to that. So this is one of the practices in CCM or critical chain method. It does not address the problem here. The concept which is mentioned here that you have identified the weakest link and you are focusing on the limiting factor. This is called theory of constraints. Theory of constraints says that there are various constraints that limit your performance. So what you do is you identify the most important limiting factor and try to handle that. Once it is solved, then the process is optimized. So this is called theory of constraints. Identifying the constraint and the most important limiting factor and then focusing on that. So correct answer is option A. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, I have options A, B, C. I'm waiting for someone to select D. So we have full spectrum. Okay. So Robin, you have chosen option C.
That one just appeared to fit the question. With over eventually disposing of the project over its entire lifespan. I didn't know enough about the other options, but that one, the wording just seemed to fit better. So that's why I chose C.
All right, thank you. Vivek, you have chosen option B.
Yes, it is mentioned for entire lifespan, but the lifespan is divided into different activities. So that's why I lean towards activity-based costing, since the different activities mention operating, maintaining, and eventually disposing also one of the activity.
All right, so you're saying these are different activities. You're saying operations is an activity, or it's
not an activity, it's a stage, but yeah, but on a high level.
On a high level. And so operations O&M, it's a stage of the project or phase of the project that we do post project, and it contains a lot of activities, like hundreds of activities. So it's collection of activities, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Francis, you have chosen option A, and then you move to C, I guess.
No, I think that
Okay.
was the previous question. I chose option C. Yeah.
Why?
So the reason is I think you are evaluating the cost over all the stages, including maintenance and over entire lifespan. So that's why I chose C. C, so that will include the cost for maintenance, in addition to all these other costs.
All right, thank you for detailed explanation. So let's see. It says a PM is evaluating different options for a new infrastructure project to ensure that the selected option provides the best long-term value. So one is long-term value. The PM decides to consider not only the initial cost, but also the cost of operations, maintenance, and eventually disposing of the project, right? So we are not just considering project cost, we are considering costs that we will be incurring after the project is delivered, means operations and maintenance cost and disposal. Okay, now activity-based costing, it can't be the right, as I have mentioned, this is not activity-based costing. We are considering different stages. Those stages contain a lot of activity. So activity-based costing is we go to the activity level. So we're not talking about that here. Option C, cost benefit analysis. We're not talking about benefits here in this question. The focus is on, different types of costs. So D can't be the right answer here. Now we have two options, product-based costing and life cycle costing. So correct answer is life cycle costing. Product-based costing is not a terminology. So life cycle costing is a concept where you consider cost of a project in its entire life, right? Starting from concept till you dispose it, right? So correct answer is option C. So I intentionally added two questions today, which are relatively new to you. For example, area of constraint and life cycle costing. You can expect these terminologies in the exam, right? So when you see a terminology that you're not sure about it, use elimination technique. And most of the time, elimination technique helps. And sometime, as Robin mentioned, option C fits with the data or the text that is given in the statement. So correct answer is option C. All other options are incorrect. Let's read the explanation. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We are done with today's session. So just write your score in the chat window in today's test. 60% great, 60, 40, 60. Okay, 40%, 50%, 50, 70. Okay, 70%, amazing. So two people got 40%. I was expecting you both would be getting 70, 80% because you have conceptual clarity, right? I'm not sure where did you miss things, but I hope you have learned a lot. So 50%, 60%, 70%. Okay. Anything more than 60% is really good. Less than 60% means you need to go back and review the content, or, I hope the tip that we discussed yesterday and the day before, like at the end of the session, you should have 10, takeaways, right? I hope you have written them down and you are making your own notes. That would be really helpful. And if you have made, please do share with me, right? I will be sharing with all of you. So for collective learning. Also, those who want to join these sessions, it's very simple and easy, right? First, my team share all the links on LinkedIn, number one. Number two, if you are my student, you will be directly getting these details. Number three, just drop a text here and you will be getting all the details. We use just one link for this Zoom call. That is a standard link that you can use. Also for my upcoming course, you can contact here. You will be getting all the details. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow with an interesting lesson. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.